guys, welcome to another INFJ ramble. I will be revisiting a oldie but goodie topic that I recently had insights upon. It has to do with INFJ doorslam, and it has to do with cutting connections and moving on. I think out of all the dispositions, well, not all of them. I'm sure there's other personality types that have inclinations to do similar things. But I think we have INFJs and maybe even INTJs are professionals at just cutting ties, cutting connections, slamming the door. Um, and I know like this is seen in a negative light, but I was trying to look at it from another spectrum, another angle, and to be honest, I think it takes a lot of courage for someone to do that. A lot of people, I think, are afraid to end connections, even when they've gone awry, even though it's become toxic and unhealthy and outdated. I think a lot of different personality types have a hard time letting go. And I think we've been vilified or crucified for this ability because it seems inhumane and like we are um, unforgiving and relentless. But I beg to differ. I think it takes a really strong person to be able to not only tolerate a lot of abuse, because I think that's what happens, right? We have a very long threshold of tolerance, and we tolerate a lot of abuse before we actually come to a conclusion that we think serves our best interest, and maybe even the interest of the opposing party, and that is by ending the connection. I think that makes us courageous because, we don't um, pretend to hold on to something that no longer works. And it's not good, bad, right, or wrong. It's kind of like opening a door and closing it, or opening a different chapter of a book. It's not good or bad, right or wrong. It's about being resilient and being able to move forward through life instead of kind of like staying in place and still having like all these attachments and connections to things that you've probably outgrown. So I'm not gonna lie, like I think a lot of the people I door slammed, it started off with a feeling of, I want to say, dis-ease. You know what I mean? And a consistent feeling of dis-ease, a consistent feeling of something not feeling um, aligned, and a consistent feeling of something feeling off kilter, you know? And when I think I would get to a certain point or reach a certain threshold where I was like, okay, enough is enough. I've given enough chances. I've tolerated a lot of abuse, and I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to invest in it. I don't want to participate in it. And I'm going to shut this door and move forward. And yeah, there's no looking back. It's about pushing forward and emerging into another aspect of yourself. You know what I mean? And I think like, yeah, we don't get caught up in like nonsense. And I think, to be honest, like these feelings of dis-ease and unalignment and confusion actually lets us know that we are highly in tune with what is best for us and what is no longer best for us. You know what I mean? Um, and we have the intelligence to be able to decipher that. We also have the courage and resilience to move on and push forward and move through. You know what I mean? It's about consuming, processing, and eliminating something that no longer is applicable. So, yeah, I guess some people might think door slamming is not cool, and I beg to differ. You know what I mean? I like to offer another angle to it. I think it takes a person of integrity, a person that has a high emotional intelligence, and also courage to do these things. A person who is afraid, a person who is unsure, a person who is codependent, a person who is, you know, more interested in being true to social constructs versus being true to themselves will not have the capacity to do this. So, yeah, just another angle when it comes to cutting off like toxic relationships, parasitic relationships, one sided relationships. We are able to do it. And we don't do it in a way that is, I don't think we do it in a way that is attacking or harmful or, how do I say, we don't do it in a hostile way. You know what I mean? Like we do it very silently and slowly until we kind of just disappear out of the other person's experience. You know what I mean? I've seen other personality types get really hostile and really explosive about it. You know what I mean? But I think INFJs are more, and maybe even INTJs are more gracious about our exit. I think maybe the opposing party is confused because they don't know what happened, but we shouldn't have to explain ourselves to someone else, especially if it's not a worthwhile investment or the relationship is no longer salvageable. You know what I mean? I don't think like you have to explain to someone per se that they've mistreated you or they're abusing you. I mean, it should be common sense. And if they can't sense that, then, you know, sometimes like trying to talk it out is not necessarily um, received well, and it's also not necessarily honored. You know what I mean? So that's why, like, for me, it's just like, it's probably the easiest, the easiest thing to do is to just kind of walk away and close the door. You know what I mean? And what I also admire about our ability to do this is we're being very honest and true to ourselves. You know what I mean? We're not pretending, we're not putting up fronts, we're not putting up facades, we're being very honest and true to ourselves. And I think if people really, really value us, they will. They will come to us and ask us, like what have I done wrong? Like how can we make this better? But if they don't, then they obviously weren't as invested in you as you were in them. That's how I feel. And I feel like I've spent most of my life like trying to repair relationships and mend them and hold them together. I don't think the opposing party put in nearly as much effort. And now that I'm older and a little bit more wiser, my tolerance level is much shorter, because I can kind of like pick up on things quicker because I've stepped out of the idealistic aspect of my mind and I've been viewing things from a more realistic viewpoint. So I can tell when someone is mistreating me, and usually if they really care about me, they'll ask me, is something wrong? Whereas in the past, in a lot of relationships, nobody ever approached me to ask me if something was wrong and, tried to talk it out with me. It was always the opposite way around. Now um, I stopped tolerating a lot of bullshit. And I noticed the people who actually care about me will actually come up to me and say, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? That's how you can tell, like, I think you are participating in a healthy relationship. It's not a one-sided street. It's not you always trying to be the caregiver or the caretaker or the repairer. You actually have people who will come up to you and ask you like how you are, and are you okay, and what's wrong. You know what I mean? And I think life is a projection of your internal realm. So it just depends on where you're at. I want to say just last year I was still like transitioning from a very unhealthy aspect of being into where I am now. And before, I was still like giving and giving and caring and loving and repairing and trying so hard to maintain. In my previous videos, I said I did have a breakdown because it was no longer feasible for me to participate in these relationships. And I needed to have a major breakdown to wake up to that, to open myself up to a new version of myself. And now that I'm where I am now, I feel I have shifted my projection, and I am literally attracting healthier human relationships and connections, and it's so like rewarding and satisfying. It doesn't feel draining. It's not confusing. I don't have to doubt anything. The people that I have been attracting into my life actually care about me, and they actually ask me how I am. If they can sense I am upset or mad, they will actually come up to me and go, hey, what's going on? Um, so I think that's how you can kind of gauge, you know, how you've shifted your projection or your perception of the world. It really does start internally. And for most of my life, I think I did to some extent hate myself. I did. Um, and I feel like when you hate yourself, you don't take the time to care for yourself. You don't take the time to understand yourself. You don't take the time to, honor what you need. You know what I mean? And you have a tendency to just kind of abuse yourself, and that is reflected in the people that you keep around you. They'll abuse you or take from you or exhaust you because you're doing it to yourself. um, when everything started to shift and come full circle, I noticed that there's a lot of things, like I said before, like I just don't tolerate anymore. um, if somebody is like abusing me, whether it be emotionally, mentally, verbally, I usually don't participate in it. You know what I mean? Like, I obviously am more quick to realize that the other person has an issue within themselves and they're trying to invite me to play in their reality, and I don't want to participate. I don't want to play. And so I just kind of like go into a really non-reactive, compassionate state, even remove my presence. You know what I mean? But I don't actively participate, and I don't become too reactive. Um, and I choose to surround myself with people who love and care and understand the way I do. And I think it started with me loving and caring and understanding myself. So I started attracting more of these healthy human beings around me. And if I can't um, find time to spend more time with these people, then I definitely spend that time by myself. And I've become my own best friend, and I've become more compassionate and more caring and more understanding towards myself. And therefore, I attract people who reflect that into my life. So, just like a reminder that it starts with you. Um, and however you have been viewing yourself is how you're going to experience the external world. You know what I mean? I don't know if it made sense. Anyhow, if you learned something cool, if you didn't, cool. I think once you start learning to love yourself and you start learning to appreciate yourself, you will tolerate less nonsense, less abuse, less confusion and craziness and Um, you just won't tolerate a lot of bullshit anymore. You'll only accept that which is true because you are being true to yourself. And you are being real with yourself, so you'll attract real relationships. All right. Thank you for watching. Have a beautiful night. Blessings to one and all. Amen.